student of Zenaria International School. Please take your seat. This is a birthday wish from for one of our members, and it's written by, the announcement is from Honorable Binta Bello. The good books of days emphasize on the need for us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom and live a cheerful life. Today, on behalf of the leadership of the House, we wish to celebrate a fellow honorable member of this noble House that has just added another blissful year to his years on earth. And we pray that the Almighty Allah, in His infinite mercy, will continue to be your shield and that of all yours. Happy birthday to you, Honorable Buba Umar Jubril. We wish you long life in good health and wealth. Today is the birthday of Honorable Buba Jubril, who is the deputy leader of the House of Representatives. So we wish him happy birthday. And I think you are cordially invited to his room after plenary. Any member who has a petition may please add it. Honorable Ikeria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Azodo Ikeria, member representing Agwata Federal Constituency from Anambra State, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a petition from my constituent, Chioda Obiora, with a company named Chobena Nigeria Limited. Mr. Speaker, sir, there's a company, he imported some goods from China, and the company is Happiness International Trading Company Limited. He imported roofing tiles, and they gave him 50 years guarantee on the tiles, only for the tiles to start fading after some weeks or months. So he petitioned to CPC, Consumer Protection Agency. They looked into the case and gave him judgment that the company should pay him certain amounts of money as compensation, because the product was supposed to last for 50 years and it didn't last up to 1 year. So since then, he has been running around with the company. He has a judgment order from the Consumer Protection Agency, but the company refused to comply with the order. So he wrote to this house to help him, and his prayer is that the house should help him to recover his money from the company. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you are seeking the leave of the House to lay the petition, so please go ahead. Former comrade Aminu Suleiman.
Honorable Speaker, I've been with you for long. They don't understand it. You call me foremost comrade, and this is for the guidance of the House. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm from Kano State, and my name is authentic comrade Aminu Suleiman. I represent Page Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a complaint from 15 retired members of Federal Ministry of Works and Housing from my constituency who are alleging refusal of the ministry to pay them terminal benefits, place them on monthly pension, and other anomalies as they allege in the letter addressed to you, of which they asked me to speak on their behalf as usual, and to ask for the leave of the House to kindly lay this petition so that the House can direct the appropriate committee to look at their grievances. The letter is signed by Mr. Najib Mohammed Page on behalf of 15 others. The leave of the House, Mr. Speaker, who want to lay the report.
Please go ahead and lay the petition. Any more petition? Petitions refer to Committee on Public Petition. Like I announced yesterday, I still want to remind honorable colleagues that debates on 2018 budget will start on 28th of November, which is Wednesday next week, and it will run through to Tuesday next week, and it will run through to 30th of November, which is Thursday next week, when that debate will be concluded. You have also been equally advised to collect copies of the 2018 budget with other accompanying documents from the office of the chairman of the House Committee on Appropriation. And don't also forget that in a moment, we're going to start debates on medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Those two debates are very important. Honorable Abdurrahman Shuaib.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my right honorable colleagues. My name is Abdurrahman Shuaibu. I represent Mubi North, Mubi South, and Maiha Federal Constituency. I'm from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming under Order 8, Rule 4, matter of urgent public importance. The matter is the resurgence of Boko Haram in Mubi and the need for immediate action. And I'm coming also under Order 8, Rule 7, to suspend our relevant rules so that I can take the matter now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Any second? Yes, Obina.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. I write this morning. My name is Obina Chidoka, Udemili North, Udemili South Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I write this morning to second the motion as ably moved. Thank you, sir.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The second leg of the motion, Honorable Yunusa. Honorable Bina, I hope your mic is not on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I remain Abubakar Yunus Ahmed, representing Yamal Tudeva Federal Constituency. I stand to second the second leg of the motion that let Honorable Abdurrahman Shaibu be allowed to take the motion now. I so second, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Shaibu, before you move your motion, approach the chair. Honorable colleagues, the motion that has just been taken will be slated, chairman rules and business will be slated for under legislative days. So for record purpose, the record department should align their recording in line with this ruling. Honorable Akiwumi, what is it? Okay, Honorable Akiwumi.
The Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, may I seek the indulgence of the Speaker. My name is Akiwumi Nuruddin Olaitan, representing the Fakoijayi Federal Constituency, the State of Excellence, Lagos State. May I seek the indulgence of the Speaker and the House to bring an issue of urgent public importance under Order 8 Rule 4 and to enable us set aside relevant rules so that the issue can be taken today. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, Honorable Muriki.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Abubakar Hussaini Moriki. I represent the people of Shinkafi and Zulmi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Zamfara State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For the reason that I've just given, This motion too will be slated for the next legislative day.
Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Speaker, please.
Honorable Fijabi, but next time don't operate your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Saeed Akari Fijabi. I'm from Ibadan, your state. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues.
That's to be done. So I will give you the indulgence of, we suspend the rule, you can move, but it will be taken on another legislative day. So Chairman, rules and business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Dr. Bode Ayorinde. I represent Owo Federal Constituency. I rise to move that the relevant sections of our rules be suspended to enable us to take additional matters of urgent public importance.
Any seconder? Neighbor to neighbor thing. Honorable Diri Doye.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Chairman, Rules and Business. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So, Honorable Fijabi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, my colleagues. My name is Saeed Akande Fijabi. I'm from Ibadan, your state. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my motion is the need to investigate the inhuman and barbaric act of slave trade involving...
Honorable Fijabi, you have to now properly, is the point of order. You are at the point of order, not at the point of the motion. So you now rise and raise your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Saeed Akande Fijabi. I'm from Ibadan, your state. My point of order is Order 8, Rule 4, matter of urgent public importance, which, and the second leg is if to suspend the relevant rule and to be able to take it today. But
Any seconder? Yes. Honorable, good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Goodluck Opia. I represent the Hajebema Oguta and Doru West constituency of Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion, ably moved by my colleague from Oyo State. I hereby second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. For the reasons given earlier, this motion too is slated for another legislative day for debate. Honorable colleagues, the first business of the day is presentation. Honorable colleagues, the first business of the day is presentation of report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the National University Commission Act, Chapter N81, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to empower the Commission to set out code of conduct for assessment of universities' students' characters alongside academic performance as condition precedent to award of degree to deserving students, and to make it mandatory for immediate issuance and release of certificates to graduating students in all tertiary institutions in Nigeria and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Aminu Sulaiman. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read to the committee on Thursday, 28 April 2016. The report is ready for presentation. Honorable Sulaiman is invited to present the report.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am from Kano State, and my name is Comrade Aminu Sulaiman. I represent Page Federal Constituency, and with the leave of the House and the Speaker, may I move that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the National Universities Commission Act, CAF N81, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to empower the Commission to set out code of conduct for assessment of university student characters alongside academic performance as condition precedent to award of degrees to deserving students, and to make it mandatory for immediate issuance and release of certificates to graduating students in all tertiary institutions in Nigeria and for related matters, HB 56 and 439. Mr. Speaker, sir, I move.
Any seconder, Honorable Goni.
Right Honorable Speaker, my respected colleagues, I am Right Honorable Goni Bukar Lawan, member representing Bursari, Gaidam Yunusari. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Yobe State. I rise to second the motion heavily moved by the Honorable Comrade. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Suleiman, lay the report. Honorable colleagues, the first order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to establish Federal College of Education, Monguno, to provide full-time courses of teaching, instructions, and training in technology, applied sciences, arts, social sciences, humanities, and management, and to provide for the appointment of the provost and other officers of the college to carry out the administration and discipline of students of the college and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable M.T. Moguno. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 21st November 2017, and I invite Honorable Moguno to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Marte Monguno Ganzai, Federal Constituency of Borno State. I hereby move that a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Education Monguno to provide full-time courses, teaching instructions, and training in technology, applied sciences, art, social sciences, humanities, and management, and to provide for the appointment of the provost and other officers of the college to carry out the administration and discipline of students of the college, and for related matters be read the second time. I so move.
Honorable Nena.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for yielding the floor to me. My name is Nena Ilendu KJ, member representing Bende Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Abia State. I rise to second the motion as moved by Honorable J.T. Monguno. I so second.
Honorable Moguno, lead the debate.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the genesis for the sponsorship of this bill, by my humble self, is against the backdrop of the fact that there is a policy of the federal government to the effect that each state should have a federal college of education and a federal polytechnic. And to that extent, the federal government has already started implementing that policy. And for the information of this august assembly, which is responsive to the yearnings and aspirations of the people that gave us the sacred mandate to represent them, Borno State is among the few states in Nigeria that can only boast of having one federal institution of learning, and that is the University of Maiduguri. Borno State does not have the privilege of having either a federal college of education or a federal polytechnic. And most states in this country have federal college of education and or federal polytechnic. And Borno State is one of the educationally disadvantaged state as per the statistics read out by the National Bureau of Statistics. So the establishment of a federal college of education will go a long way in boosting literacy in Borno State. It will go a long way in creating employment in the immediate locality. And Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the genesis of the Boko Haram insurgency that is now prevalent in the Northeast and in particular Borno State can be traced to illiteracy. And for us to conquer this menace of Boko Haram insurgency, there is a need for us to educate our people, to give them education, and also educate people that are going to educate our children. And it is only through a college of education that we are going to train teachers to train our children. So that also brought about the necessity or the need for the establishment of a federal college of education in Borno State. One, in order, in the spirit of fairness and equity, so that Borno State can be at par with most states in the Federation to have the privilege of having either and or a federal college of education or a federal polytechnic. And then having regard to the disadvantaged nature of the state educationally, establishment of a federal college of education will go a long way in boosting the educational level of the state. So against this background, I am urging my colleagues to please support the establishment of the Federal College of Education in Borno State. Thank you.
Honorable Aminu Suleiman.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise, Mr. Speaker, to lend my very slim weight on this all-important bill, Mr. Speaker, even if it is for the sake of justice and fairness. I bear witness that Borno State is among the 3 states in Nigeria that have only a single federal institution of higher learning. The 2 others are Sokoto and Ebonyi State. Mr. Speaker, Borno State, as we all know, have a very peculiar problem. And I think it is in the interest and direct policy of even this House to ensure that we support them, even if they have 1 or 2 extra. This is not perfect, as he rightly enumerated. the challenges of space for people from Borno State and Northeast in particular to access higher education might have contributed to the advantage the insurgents have in recruiting available army, because there is just no opportunity for them to get a space to further their education if the quota of the university there is exhausted. I do not think that there is any argument that will negative the intention of the mover and even the House to assist in passing this motion. I want to urge my highly respected colleagues and your honorable self, sir, to ensure that this bill pass through. I don't want to talk much because I know at the end of the day, I will have the privilege of superintending over whatever we are going to do. I will want to stop so that I will not be accused of taking a position, but I believe that this bill really deserves the sympathy of every Nigerian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nena.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support this motion for two reasons. One, I'm from Abia State, and of course, for equity and fairness, as the chairman had said, it is imperative that it is equitably distributed. But as far as also Borno State is concerned, let me also say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that on the floor of this House, a lot of the time we've tackled insurgency and we've spoken to the military intervention in tackling insurgency. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is often said that the problems of insurgency are tetra-headed. And of course, while we deal with it militarily, it's imperative for us to look at the reasons behind it in the first place. From what I gather, in spite of the fact that Borno State has one of the oldest secondary schools in northern Nigeria, aside from the capital, which is Maiduguri, most of the other places around do not have any schools or any higher institutions. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is little wonder then that Boko Haram took root in a place with an ideology that said Western education is bad, and it found followership. Mr. Speaker, my concern is that for as long as we tackle the fighters, if we do not tackle the ideology, then we cannot be said to properly tackle the scourge of terrorism. Only this morning, 50 people were killed, and the numbers are on the rise. And it is because, of course, let us not forget that the ideology behind Boko Haram is Western education is bad. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we as a parliament continue to talk about funding the military to fight it, we must also realize that there are several solutions to tackling terrorism. Of course, one is military, the other one is tackling the ideology. So if as a government, we put higher institutions that will train and retrain the teachers and challenge the ideology of Boko Haram, that indeed Western education is bad, then we're tackling terrorism at its root, not the result of the terrorism. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, to that end, I believe that in spite of what it is that we do every year, we put a lot of funding into human resource development, which of course was a large component of the World Bank loan that Nigeria took to rebuild the Northeast, and we do not really see any tangibles. I believe that the international community believes that our country must find homegrown solutions to tackling Boko Haram. And this is one homegrown solution, which is building schools and challenging the ideology. Of course, for me, Mr. Speaker, sir, quite aside from that, it also opens the door again for equity when the chairman of education says that he supports it for equity. Therefore, aside from the reason that I've just proffered with regards to challenging the narrative and challenging the ideology of Boko Haram, I also agree with him in totality that for equity, after Borno, we should move to Abia. Thank you very much.
Honorable Olajide Jimo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Jima Abdurrahim Olajide. I'm from Lagos Mainland Federal Constituency, Lagos State. I stand to support this bill simply because it's a bill that has to do with education. It's a bill that has to do with knowledge. And they say knowledge is about service. And after all, you become a leader. For you to become a leader, you have to be knowledgeable. For you to become a leader, you have to make sure you have all what it takes to become the leader. And I want to say this. This is a complete bill to establish an institution called Federal College of Education, Mogono, sponsored by Mohammed Tairu Mogono. And it has a purpose. And the purpose has been enumerated by various speakers. And I want to say this, Mr. Speaker. This is quite different from Alimajiri School, in which I believe, to me, the word Alimajiri is an insult. But when you come on board and bring something tangible, particularly on the issue of education, it's going to be a welcome development. Establishing a tertiary institution in that village, in that town, in that community, is an advantage to the entire citizenry of that place. It's an advantage to the indigent of that place. It's an advantage to every single Nigerian. And it's also an advantage for whoever that wants to come to Nigeria to study anything that relates to all these kind of things that have been enumerated. And the principle behind this bill is to establish a functional college of education to attract people and encourage Nigerians and encourage people that matters and enlighten and broaden the scope of people and make people to be knowledgeable and at the end of the day become a leader. And there's a motto of a school in which I attended. The motto is knowledge, service, and leadership. If you don't have the knowledge, you cannot serve. Not to talk of attending NYSC or becoming a leader of tomorrow. You have to be knowledgeable because you can serve. It is only when you serve diligently you can become a leader of thought, leader that people will respect. But if you don't have this kind of knowledge, you cannot do it. And I want to support this bill wholeheartedly. That's a welcome development, and I support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Tajbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Abbas Tajuddin. I represent Zaria Federal Constituency. I'm from Kaduna State. Honorable Speaker, I rise to lend my voice in support of this very important bill because empirical studies have shown that there is a linear relationship between poverty and education, as well as crime and education. Societies that are denied of education are very vulnerable to crime. And I think a state like Borno, with over 4 million people, suffers from that kind of issue. So for us to really do our work in this hallowed chamber is for us to address states, not only Sokoto, that is educationally backward. And we know that that lack of educational opportunities are partially responsible for what we are witnessing today. So I think it is our collective responsibilities to support this bill to ensure that it passes for second reading so that the people of Borno will be given the right atmosphere for their youth to be engaged in education so that their economy will improve and their level of communal development will also increase. I support this bill wholeheartedly and I call on all members to support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Aliyu Aman Patiki.
Colleagues, my name is Honorable Aliyu Aman Patiki. I represent the people of Edumoro, Patiki Federal Constituency. I'm from Kwara State. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I want to support this bill. Very good one, not because of the mover, but because it is appalling that in 2017, 3 states in the country do not have special colleges of education. I listened to Honorable Abbas just say that the population of Borno is about 4 million people. We are witnesses to what is happening in Kaduna, where 22,000 people are going to be thrown into the labor market. Is it possible that it's because of lack of training of the teachers that this is going to happen? I call on our colleagues in this chamber that are from Sokoto State and Abia State to quickly bring up a bill so that the issue of equity raised by Honorable Mangunu, the mover of the motion, can be properly addressed so that every state in Nigeria will have a special college of education. Education is not just going to a school. It is continuing education that develops the mind. And like Honorable Nena rightly said, that the mind of a terrorist needs to be, it's only education that you can use to change the mindset. If 4 million people do not have a teacher training school, then it tells us that governments of yesteryears have failed the people of Borno State. And rightly, like what the chairman of the Committee on Education said, that we should all support it, to go before him, it should be done speedily, and our colleagues in Sokoto and Abia should quickly bring up their own bill and we should all pass it. Thank you.
Is he Abia or Eboyi? No, it's Eboyi and Sokoto. And Abia too. Okay, it's Abia. Okay, Abia and Sokoto. Okay. Abonta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Uzoma Nkem Abonta. I want to join my several colleagues in supporting this bill crafted by Honorable Mangunu for the people of Mangunu. Mr. Speaker, I'm only trying to add additional things, otherwise I adopt the postulations of the previous speakers as if they were mine. But I want to support this purely on issue of equity, and particularly as canvassed by my colleague right behind me, that equity and justice be done to all the states. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to relate what is happening in Borno State, particularly the community of Mangunu, where the high spirit of the insurgents, Boko Haram, is thriving. I argued here sometime that what exists there, northeast, is exactly what you have in Aba and the environs, and that is why you had Boko Haram that have the iPod or whatever. Lack of education is a disease. It's infectious. Lack of credible and proper education, as being cried in Kaduna, should be looked into. Attempting to fight insurgents and all whatnot without the main cause is like treating some symptom of sickness, allowing the main disease. I agree with my sister, Honorable Nena, that we must also develop ideology to reform the minds of the youth. Where you have the teeming teenagers and they have nothing to do, nothing to school, they will be schooled by the school that is available. And what is the school available is teaching them destruction, insurgents, and all whatnot. Therefore, government in a practical steps and legislature should be able to complement, to bring the government to bear by establishing colleges of education. I went through this bill. It is well crafted and contains a proper curriculum that will be able to change the minds of the youth. Therefore, I want to add, as the chairman of Committee on Education also said, that this bill should also come out with the speed of light, as society will always say, that a minimum of not more than our rule allows 60 days, but 30 days should be given to them to report out this bill again so we can do justice to it. We do not have time anymore. If we can't put these corrections now, then we'll be caught by the shortness of time as in previous assembly. My submission is that the bill should be allowed to go to second reading, and that the chairman and the committee should report out this bill within 30 days' time to come back again, that we may do the needful thing. And then, as this is going on, at the committee level, in trying to do equity, the other states that are not also not having these things should be able to be accommodated in a single transaction. Otherwise, if there's addendum, we look at the rules and see if we can have an addendum at the committee level to file, rather than coming to file a fresh bill. On the basis of equity, Abia, Sokoto, other states should be included, Mr. Chairman, as you do it. I therefore support the bill in its entirety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's now to put the question. The question now is that the bill be read the second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Aminu Suleiman should be reminded that a case has been made for Sokoto and Abia. So it now depends on how you do it. But I feel strong too that it should be taken along. No, Osun has too many schools. Plenty. We have about 5 universities. We have about 3 colleges of education. It's one of the highly, Honorable Buba Jubril, before you came into the chamber, your birthday has been announced. Once again, in your presence, we wish you happy birthday. And I've told honorable colleagues that everybody should resume in your office after plenary. Was that a body? No. Anyway, happy birthday. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Education Monguno to provide full-time courses, teaching instructions and training in technology, applied sciences, arts, social sciences, humanities and management, and to provide for the appointment of the provost and other officers of the college to carry out the administration and discipline of students of the college and for other related matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services. Honorable colleagues, the second order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act 2011 to accommodate modern development relating to admissibility of confessional statements to render illegally obtained evidence inadmissible, give discretion to the court with regard to certification of electronically generated documents, provide for admissibility of public documents without makers of such documents being called as witnesses, and to stipulate a time limit on the presumption of validity of judicially noticed customs, and to impose a duty on the courts to ensure that customs that have been judicially noticed are not thereafter being subjected to proof by evidence for an inordinately long period of time, are reviewed by the courts to ascertain that they are still representatives of the custom as they are currently practiced in the communities with respect to which the custom relates, and for related matters, standing in the names of Honorable Edward Pajok, Honorable Rita Oji, and Honorable Garba Dati Muhammad. Honorable members will recall that the bill were consolidated on Wednesday, 15 November 2017. I now invite Honorable Garba Dati Muhammad to move that the bill be now read the second time. Chairman, Rules and Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I rise to apply that the second order of the day be stepped down, as none of the sponsors of the bill is on the floor of the House.
Bill stepped down by the leave of the House. Honorable colleagues, the third order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to establish the Maritime Security Agency to promote maritime security and to provide, among other things, for the establishment of the Maritime Security Agency charged with the responsibility of providing security and safety information and communication facilities for all categories of users of Nigerian maritime industry and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Untufa Mbora. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 22nd March 2017, and I invite Honorable Mbora to move that the bill be now read a second time. Chairman rules. Sorry, he's on the floor. But, okay, is that your seat? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Tufa Mbora. I represent Calabar Municipal Olukpani Federal Constituency of Cross River State. I move that the bill for an act to establish the Maritime Security Agency to promote maritime security and for other purposes and other related purposes I so move.
Honorable Idisi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Chief Lovett Idisi. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my humble colleague. I so second. Thank you.
Honorable Mbora, please lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we note that the importance of marine and maritime explorations and activities cannot be ignored, especially at the time of recession as presently being experienced in Nigeria. The desire for the diversification of Nigeria's economy makes this bill even more relevant. Maritime economy and the activities therefrom have proved to be a major contributor to the gross domestic products and national income generally. Given the security situation globally and especially in Nigeria, there is the need to organize and streamline activities and conduct of the various participants and stakeholders to ensure orderliness, safety in the course of carrying out businesses in the internal, territorial, sea and coastal lands of Nigeria. This bill in operation, if it's in operation or when in operation, will undertake a coordinated response to frequent maritime threats and terrorism running over our communities within the maritime and coastal states. It will also empower the agency to create a buffer departments and operational units and points in all the coastal states listed for its operation. It becomes imperative, therefore, to establish the Maritime Security Agency to promote maritime security among other incidental activities. Historically, this bill was first introduced and passed in the 6th Assembly on the 13th of December 2010 and sent to the President for accent, but for which accent or withholding, therefore, was not communicated before the end of the tenure of that 6th Assembly. The bill is therefore coming de novo because it is not one from the immediate preceding 7th Assembly. The objectives of the bill seeks to eradicate maritime crimes from Nigerian coastal and maritime environment and also enhance maritime and coastal domain awareness in conjunction with the related agencies of government and stakeholders while creating employment. Few functions of this bill will oversight responsibility and coordination for the provision of security to national maritime infrastructure, particularly. It will monitor, regulate, and coordinate maritime security communications between persons, subject, and craft within particular its area in Nigerian maritime environments. It will also assist in search and rescue operations in conjunction with all maritime agencies and organizations. It will establish a security and infrastructure protection mechanism for all seaports, pool and coordinate resources towards supporting maritime security and necessary industry upgrades, and enhance intra and inter-industry maritime security and modular refineries, security coordinations, capacity and cooperation between the national intelligence and security forces, communities, maritime stakeholders, among others. This bill has 44 sections and 2 schedules. Furthermore, the bill is divided into 10 parts, consisting of the establishment of the agency, objectives of the agency, functions as read, agency and commitments, policy statements, partnership, sustainability, governing board of the agency and its membership, financial provision, charges, levies, safety, security of ships, general provisions, legal proceedings and offenses. The bill in its content does not apply to warships or military patrol boats or ships. The agency shall comply and operate in accordance with International Code of Conduct, ICOC, and other relevant national and international regulations with firm commitment to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, as well as their voluntary commitments. Second schedule of this proposed bill, section 12, sub 2, clearly states that the agency shall not have interest or dealings in any matter, operations, services that would conflict with the duties of existing agencies charged with such duties. The agency will work in collaboration with other stakeholders in the industry, for instance, the Navy, NIMASA, amongst others. Emphatically, the duties of this agency will not encroach on the mandate of the Navy and NIMASA, but to complement them with strong collaborations, especially if establishment of these agencies will reduce heavy losses of revenue by the federal government and reconcile the issues in the outsourcing of maritime security, safety, pipeline protection to contractors, countries with similar laws. We will note, after I've been in existence for over a while and operating coastal security, colleagues, I urge you to all support the passage of the second reading of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's start from here. Honorable Lovett DC, that will come like this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I remain Chief DC Lovett. I represent the good people of 18th East and West Federal Constituency of Delta State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm an honorable chief. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this all-important bill because I think security issue in the country today is in the front burner. Security of our waterways is no exception to the security challenges we're facing in the country today. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the crime that is being occasioned in our waterways is overwhelming. And as for such reason, I believe the establishment of further security agency to strengthen the existing ones based on the inefficiencies that is being occasioned is an issue that shouldn't be swept under the carpet, and my honorable colleagues to support this all-important bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, if you have been a victim of kidnapping before and been taken on a speedboat in one of these waterways for hours into the creeks without any visible form of any security apparatus in place, you will understand the reason why the security of the waterways is highly essential. Mr. Speaker, besides the issue of kidnapping and crimes, the loss of revenues on our waterways, on our pipeline.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My dear colleagues, I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shirora Fimuya Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I'm from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I stand up this morning to support this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill is timely. Mr. Speaker, the Nigerian Navy operate mostly beyond the 12 nautical miles within the water shores. But Mr. Speaker, globally, whether it is called maritime security, we have what we call the coastal guards. We have them even here right close to us in Ghana. Ghana have the coastal guards. These coastal guards are to protect the maritime areas. So if Nigerians own is called the maritime security, it is not in conflict with what the Nigerian Maritime Authority is doing, but rather is going to solve a lot of problems. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, you may wish to recall the controversial contract given to Tompolo as regard to the maritime security. If Nigeria has or have this maritime security, that security contract wouldn't have been given to Tompolo. That has become very controversial now. So I believe by having the maritime security will solve a lot of problems. The Navy will continue with its operation mostly beyond the 12 nautical miles, while the maritime security will operate below. And by doing this, we'll protect all our pipelines, we'll protect all the crime that will be perpetrated within the maritime area 12 nautical miles below. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, this is timely and we should support this bill. And from the brief I read about this bill came into existence in the 6th Assembly and it came in the 7th Assembly, though it has not been assented to. But I believe we have a proactive system, a proactive government who is not interested in giving out the maritime contract to people for security purposes, but rather they want an institutional solution to the problem of maritime security. And this is the only way to solve the problem institutionally without giving out contract that may turn out to be waste, and we will continue to recycle people, making them rich to the expense of Nigerians. And Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, please, let's support this bill so that this bill will see the light of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues.
Dr. Bode Ayorinde, that's the final debate on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I'm Dr. Bode Ayorinde. I represent Owo, Ose Federal Constituency. Honorable colleagues, I'm from Ondo State. I rise to support this bill for two reasons. One, the security on the waterways and maritime area couldn't have been sufficient. If it had been sufficient, there wouldn't have been need for the federal government to contract extraordinary men like the OPC, like what Honorable Shika said, Tompolo and the rest of them. It is because of the dire need to secure that area that federal government now started resorting to looking for people that believe that, who are either thought that are involved in criminal activities to now secure the waterways. Secondly, Nigeria today is not having we cannot sleep with two eyes closed when it comes to the issue of security. And our rating internationally is not heartwarming. We need to do everything to secure our environment, particularly the waterways and the maritime area where the budget is heavily dependent upon. On these 2 points, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I call on our colleagues to support this bill and it to be passed with the speed of light.
Olajide Jiwon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Olajide Jiwon is my name. I'm from Lagos Mainland, Federal Constituency, Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, sir, maritime industry is a very important industry in our economy, and we must not play with it. And in line with the 1982 United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, this bill is timely and is important and relevant to what we are discussing. I salute the courage of our colleague who has brought this bill, because it's a bill that is going to be against the crime and criminality on the sea. It's also a bill that will provide and promote security and safety for people around the coastal area. And it's also a bill that's going to be legalized. Because even whatever thing we have been doing before now has not been legalized. We are just doing it on our own. And it's also a bill that will create more job opportunity and employment for the teeming youth of this country. So I'm in support of the bill wholeheartedly, and it's a welcome one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, my neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Francis Charles Uduyo, member representing Ikorabas in Parani, Eastern Obodo. I'm from Akwa Ibom State. I rise to second this, to support this bill. That the bill is very important and timely. For those of us that come from the riverine communities, we can attest to the fact that the level of incessant attacks in terms of insecurity to our fishermen is enormous. And therefore, this bill stands to solve most of those problems that the Nigerian Navy and other forces security cannot solve, because most of these attacks are done inside the creeks where our boats, the big war boats, are stationed off the coast. And so our fishermen are exposed to attacks from hoodlums and terrorists. For example, in my community where I come from, all the fishing ports located very close to the Atlantic Ocean, there is barely any 1 month that passed that you won't hear that people have been attacked, engine boat has been collected, and people have been wounded. So this bill is very important, and I believe that my colleagues will support this bill so that it can come to reality and the issue of insecurity along the coast will be properly addressed. I so submit, sir.
The question now is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish the Maritime Security Agency to promote maritime security and to provide, among other things, for the establishment of the Maritime Security Agency charged with the responsibility of providing security and safety administration and communication facilities for all categories of users of the Nigerian maritime industry and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee on Maritime Safety, Education and Administration. Honorable colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion on 2018-2020 medium-term expenditure framework and physical strategy paper, standing in the name of the House leader. The leader is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. This is a 2018 to 2020 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Mr. Speaker, it is also a motion, as is indicated in the prayer, to also rescind the earlier decision of this House. If we recall, Mr. Speaker, when the letter from Mr. President on the MTF was read on the floor, it was inadvertently sent to the committee without debate, which is not the proper procedure. And based on that, Mr. Speaker, this motion encompasses both the substantive motion to debate the issue and thereafter send it as should be to the committee, and also to rescind the earlier prayer or the earlier resolution wherein it was sent to the committee before debate. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
The leader has the audacity to orally move his motion, because I expected the motion to have been read, but...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed, for me, the audacity of hope. In the hope that this motion will be passed by members of the House. But I will go ahead and read the substance of the motion, Mr. Speaker. The House notes that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, on Tuesday, 17 October 2017, forwarded a request to the House of Representatives for approval of the 2018 to 2020 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Aware that Section 11, subsection 2 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 provides that the medium-term expenditure framework shall be considered for approval with such modifications, if any, as the National Assembly finds appropriate by a resolution of each House of the National Assembly. Also notes that Section 11, subsection 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 provides that the medium-term expenditure framework shall contain, among other things, a macroeconomic framework setting out the macroeconomic projections for the next 3 years, the underlying assumptions for these projections, and an evaluation and analysis of the macroeconomic projections for the preceding 3 financial years. This House recalls that upon reading the communication from the President, the request was referred to the relevant committees without debate. The House resolves to 1, set aside the earlier referral to enable debate on the request, and 2, commit the 2018 to 2020 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the committees on finance, appropriations, national planning and economic development, legislative budget and research, aids and loans, and debt management to scrutinize and make recommendations to the House. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I so move.
Empty. Sorry, the deputy leader is around.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. No, it's not. Okay. When he's leave to make it sought.
Anyway, for the purpose of education, I will allow you to move your point of order. Purpose of education. But by the order of the House, the point where you can make personal explanation, we've gone past it, and it's in the order. But performance of education, I will allow you to move your point of order. But next time, personal explanation cannot come when we have started the business of the day. That's the order of the other people. But let me hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wanted the leader of the House to finish his motion before raising the point of order. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the motion on the floor of the House relates to the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And the Fiscal Responsibility Act sets out the medium-term expenditure framework, which should ordinarily precede the laying of the budget by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, looking at the motion raised by the leader of the House, the Fiscal Responsibility Act provides the medium-term expenditure framework shall be considered for approval, with such modifications, if any, as the National Assembly finds appropriate by a resolution of each House of the National Assembly. Again, he went on to say that he also notes that the Act provides that the medium-term expenditure framework shall contain, among other things, a macroeconomic framework, setting out the macroeconomic projections for the next 3 years, which is actually the basis of budgeting and the reason for us to budget. Now, this MTEF was laid in the House, and the budget for 2018, which is the budget year for the MTEF, ending in 2020. The budget has been laid.
Honorable colleagues, please, she has a point too by raising a point of order. So when there is a point of order on ground, we must listen, rule first before you move your own point of order. Don't rule on behalf of the presiding officer, please. She has a point of order. Let her finish.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the budget has been laid with all the macroeconomic projections benchmark price, and all of that. And my question is, what is the use of this debate? If we are going to have this debate, then there has to be an understanding that the decision house will affect the budget that has been laid by...
Honorable Betty, you have laid a grant for your point of order. So you don't now try to go ahead and start explaining the issues. So take your seat. Take your seat. Like I said earlier, I have to make a ruling on the point of order before anybody can do any other thing. Like I said earlier, you came under personal explanation, which of course, by the other paper of the House, which is the guide, we've gone down past it. But like I said, for the purpose of education, yes, you are correct that MTEF is the document that will lay the basis for the preparation of the subsequent budget. But again, we are starting the debate on MTEF now, and we have that capacity and ability, and it's part of our function to change some assumption in the budget. Like if you recall, there has never been any year in the last 6 to 7 years where the benchmark of the government has not been raised from whatever it is put in the budget. It's part of the medium-term and expenditure framework. So we have not gone out of the order that you are raising, and we have not started discussion on the 2018 budget. And whatever changes we are going to make on the budget, we still have that time, we still have that opportunity, and that will be taken from the contributions of honorable members on the floor of the House. So your point of order is noted, and the MTF debate will go on, and whatever changes we are eventually going to make are still going to be in order. So your point of order is noted. Honorable Betty Apiafi, if you still want to come under personal explanation, I rule you out of order. Which one do you want? Your point of order is noted, but if you are still coming under personal explanation, you are ruled out of order. So any other point of order? Yes, Mwazu, what is the point of order?
Speaker, it's not point of order, but it's just an observation. My name is Honorable.
You can only come by point of order. Take your seat. Nobody can move point of order on personal explanation again. So, Atuwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Razak Atuwa, representing us at Lower West Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, still on that order 805, quite rightly, Mr. Speaker.
Order 805 is what? The what? Honorable Atuwa, take your seat. Let me know the point of order you are raising.
Mr. Speaker, just as you said, so that we all follow the rules in this House, just as you've said, apart from the fact that personal explanation comes at a particular stage on the order paper. In addition, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't keep misapplying rules in this House, personal explanation has to be matters by implication personal. It has to be non-controversial, and Mr. Speaker, it has to have been submitted to you in extenso.
I know all those ones, Just take your seat. Just take your seat. Honorable Bade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for yielding the floor to me. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the attention of this to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which was passed by this very House. And I read a section of it. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very important that we look at this because I have an explanation that I'll make. Now, what the Fiscal Responsibility Act says, 11B, that therefore not later than 4 months before the commencement of the next financial year, cost to be prepared a middle-term expenditure framework for the next 3 financial years. Mr. Speaker.
That's your point of order. Don't do any explanation. Take your seat. Better late than never. Better late than never, because this is November. And it's... So if it's a leader, Honorable Samson, be careful, be careful. Be careful, Honorable Samson, be careful. Honorable Sampson, be careful. Yes, your point of order is that budget and the MTF should be prepared in a certain manner during a period of time. But let me also remind you that the financial year so described in the Constitution ends by December 31. So whatever we do between now and December 31, whether it is late, whether it is earlier, whether it is... So your point of order is noted and we are in order. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, Mr. Speaker, if you will permit me, and I think it's responsible as the leader of the House, to appreciate the points that have been made by various speakers in terms of the procedure in bringing the MTF. But Mr. Speaker, the law that has been cited by Honorable Badi and most of the speakers are laws that have been made by this House. Mr. Speaker, let me refer to something that is more superior to laws that have been made by this House. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution in Section 1, subsection 3, says if any other law is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution, they prevail, and that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Mr. Speaker, with that background, let me read the provisions of Section 81, subsection 1 of our Constitution. And that provision says, the President shall cause to be prepared and laid before each House of National Assembly at any time, and that's the key operative word, any time in each financial year, estimates of the revenues and expenditure of the Federation for the next following financial year. The implication of this, Mr. Speaker, is this, that even though the fiscal responsibility, and perhaps for very good reason, says that you shall bring the MTF 3 months before the budget is presented, the Constitution is very clear. It says that you can present the budget at any time before the financial year. There is a level of inconsistency. There is a level of inconsistency between the Constitution and the law that has been passed. I think it behooves on this House, and I think we have made such proposals that the budget shall be brought at a particular date. That proposal has been put in the constitutional amendment, but I appreciate the point that has been made. I believe that it is made in good faith. I believe for good reason that the MTF should be brought clearly 3 months, way before the budget is brought. But moving forward, because of the greater picture and the bigger picture and the good of our country, I believe members should stand that objective down, and moving forward, the right thing will be done.
Thank you, Leader. I think the relevant section of the Constitution you cited is in line with the earlier ruling that I gave, that the most important thing is that the budget has been brought before December 31. That's the most important thing. And that's the end of the financial year. I just hope this is not another way. This is not another way of making sure that this budget is not debated when we were able to get through by making sure that the President came personally to present the budget. Let's move forward. MTF, what is the issue now? In this case, there is a motion on ground and we should continue the debate on MTF. If you have any point of order, please raise. No explanation. No explanation. You can only come by way of point of order, because there is a motion that is already seconded, and we will go ahead with the debate of MTF. So, Mwazu, is it a point of order? Please, is it a point of order, Mwazu?
My name is Honorable Ismail Amozasa, representing our Confederal constituency from Gombe State. My own is contribution on the debate. So let this matter be decided whether to be heard or not to be heard before we come up with the contribution.
Take your seat. I asked whether it's point of order, but you insisted on talking. So the leader of the House lead the debate on the MTF. MTF debate starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, honorable colleagues, for your kind indulgence. Mr. Speaker, this is going to be very, very quick, very straightforward. The MTF and fiscal strategy paper is just basically what it is. It is more or less a 3-year rolling plan. It is a 3-year budget which gives you a bird's eye view, plus or minus, as to what is going to happen in the subsequent 3 years. Mr. Speaker, it is very realistic with very minimal and conservative increments towards the output and indices. It is, Mr. Speaker, a macroeconomic framework setting out the macroeconomic projections, again, like I said, for the next 3 financial years. What are the parameters that have been stated therein? The key parameters, Mr. Speaker, the oil production and output level for 2018 has been pegged at 2.5 million barrels per day. For 2019...
Sorry, leader. Honorable colleagues, please. Honorable Atuwa, please let's all be reminded that we have started debate on MTF and budget, which is probably one of the most, or probably the only singular important document. So, the copy of MTF is with everybody. We announced yesterday that you should go and collect from the appropriation chairman office, and has been distributed. Honorable Akpatasin, be careful. You are APC, be careful. It was announced yesterday, be careful. Leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, like I said, the oil production and output level has been pegged at 2.1 million barrels per day in 2018. In 2019, there's been a slight increment to 2.83 million barrels per day. And in the year 2020, we have an output on oil production of 3.1 million barrels per day. The second key parameter that has been adopted in the MTF and the fiscal strategy paper is the oil benchmark. The oil benchmark for 2018 is pegged at $45. Oil benchmark for 2019 at $50 and for 2020 at $52. Again, very slight and minimal increment over a period of 3 years. What remains constant, Mr. Speaker, in the MTF is for 3 years is the exchange rate, which has been pegged at 305 naira per dollar. Mr. Speaker, the collectible revenues for the federal government 2018, 11.6 trillion, 2019, 14.7, and 2020, 16.2. Mr. Speaker, those are the key issues in the MTF as far as macroeconomic framework is concerned. It is based on this that the budget which was presented was based, and I believe it is very realistic with very minimal and conservative increments, which will serve us for the next 3 years and give us a bird's eye view as to what will happen in 2019 and in 2020. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, again, I want to say very clearly that I appreciate the points that have been made by various speakers prior to this debate, and I actually enjoyed it. I was beginning to think that this role that I have been playing in the last 2 years have become very boring. So I was excited by the contributions and the debate that ensued before my debate. I thank you very much, honorable colleagues, and I plead with you once again that for the greater good of the country, that we pass this budget and we send it to the committee, the joint committees, for necessary work, so that we can now consider and debate the budget proper come Tuesday. Because without adopting this or approving this, then we will not, even though the budget has been laid and presented, we will not be able to take it or debate it on Tuesday. That is why this is it's actually a motion at the same time of urgent public importance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Like I said, it was the first announcement that was made yesterday morning that the copy of MTEF and the budgets, the two are ready, and they are lying in the office of the Chairman Committee Appropriation. So it's been 24 hours when this announcement was first made. And this morning too, copies of MTEF documents has been widely distributed among those who came early. So, please, let us concentrate on the issues like the Lisa said. So, Betty, and again, for those of us, although it is mandatory that every member will take the floor when we are discussing, debating the budget. And so, since yesterday too, we've announced that members should come and put their names down against the debate on budget that will start on 28th, which is Tuesday next week, and end on Thursday, 30th of November. So the list is here. Members should endeavor to come and put their names down. So, Betty Apiafi.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Abua Oduala Huda East Federal Constituency. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. Speaker, I just want to put it on record that today we are having a debate on the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy that should have preceded the budget laying of the budget of 2018. And various issues will come up in this debate. Members are going to come up with issues that will add to and enrich the budget 2018, starting with benchmark price, starting with some of the projects that we think will really get Nigeria out of economic recession. So I want to state clearly that we shouldn't be accused tomorrow, which is where I was taking my argument to initially. Tomorrow we shouldn't be accused of budget padding, because definitely for this budget to be meaningful to Nigerians, which we all represent here, we are representatives of our different constituencies. And if the debate on medium-term expenditure framework had been done as at when due, it would have formed the basis of what the budget that is laid will be. But since it wasn't done, we have a right as representatives of the people to ensure that the outcome of the medium-term expenditure framework debate will affect the 2018 budget. So what I'm saying is that, and I know my colleagues here will understand what I'm saying, members of this House of Representatives will have a right to do modifications in the budget 2018. And Nigerians should be prepared for that, and nobody should accuse us of budget padding as at the time we make the amendments in the budget. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe for the benefit of honorable colleagues, let me from this seat try to open up our minds. Betty, it could be dangerous at times when you keep repeating the same thing that you think is true and you want others to believe it to be so. MTEF is a paper that will contain some key assumptions. They are just assumptions, key assumptions, which are open to debate. And what are those assumptions? One, Nigerian budget majorly is predicated on the volume of a barrel of oil that we have. We want to see whether that is feasible. We can debate it. The benchmark, we want to see whether what the federal government is proposing is feasible, we can debate it. We can debate the deficit. We can debate whether the revenue projection of last budget was attained, whether they are likely to attain. Those things are assumptions that can be debated. It's not cast in stone. So whether we debate it now or it has been brought some 4 months earlier does not make any difference at all. Let's debate those key assumptions. Yes, when we debate and make resolution on those assumptions, then they will affect the budget because the budget is still with us. So I don't think no process has been circumvented. We are still in line. So let members realize the fact that we will still be able to make impact even while we are debating the MTF now. Because there is nothing stopping us to say, okay, we are not agreeing with the budget benchmark. We want to go to this. The volume of barrel of oil produced is not realizable. This is what we think is proper. So we don't have to start confusing ourselves as something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. Let us have open mind, let us debate. We will make resolution on MTF. So I will go by, let me finish with this column, Mwazu.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, my name is Honorable Ismail Mwazu, member representing Akwa Federal Constituency. Yes, I quite appreciated your own explanation, but Mr. Speaker, going by the provision of the Act, MTF specifically is giving us an opportunity to look at how far we have done in our last budget and also what we intend to do in the coming budget. The assumptions are there and also the realities are also there. So it is not only an assumption, it is reality versus assumption. So it is important we go by the sequence of the arrangement of the law, Mr. Speaker, as provided by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So it is not correct for one to say...
Honorable Mazu, what is the order of law? What do you want us to do now?
It is important we look at our gauge. How far have we done in the last one compared to the assumption of what we have today? So it is not just correct for somebody to say it's mere assumption. That is just my correction. And it is important next time.
Honorable Masu, you are not correcting anybody. We have always done that, and it's going to be done at the budget level. It's going to be done at the budget level. Yes, it is late. Take your seat, Honorable Masu. Just take your seat first. Take your seat. I was the one who recognized you. I can still recognize you. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Masu. Take your seat. Take your seat. I was the one who recognized you. If you say you are still on your feet, I was the one who recognized you. So take your seat. Yes, I know where you are coming from. And the leader of the House has done his job by appealing to members. It's not my own job. It's his job. He has done a lot by appealing to you people to say, you have not accepted. That is the point. So, leader, over to you. Yes, go back to your seat and talk to your honorable colleagues.
But somebody must be allowed to air his own mind now. Abi?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I can hear members across the board saying I did not appeal to them. I remember and I recollect appealing once, twice, 3 times. I will appeal again, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, by way of gentle persuasion, particularly, Honorable Betty, how will you hear my appeal when you're talking over me? You cannot hear my appeal. So, but I want to appeal to all my colleagues, and including Honorable Chuchu, who only just walked in. So he missed the first 2, 3 appeals. I appeal to him, I appeal to every member that for the sake of country, let us move forward with this, bearing in mind the provisions of also even the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so that by Tuesday we can debate this bill, we can debate the budget and move forward. Once again, I thank you in anticipation for the speedy approval of the MTEF. Thank you.
So, Honorable Mazu, you can now complete your debate.
Mr. Speaker, let me clearly be understood here. I want to say that I've listened to the appeal made by the leader. But as well, I want to appeal also to the leaders of this House to do the correct thing. Let this House be guided towards doing the right thing, please. It is just obvious that this law, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, has provided step by step on how this budget should be taken. We start from the MTEF. After the MTEF, then the budget. It is expected that whatever submission we have in this House, it should be taken even to the Federal Executive Council. That is the input, where that now it will now come to the budget, and then finally the budget will come back to this House. So there are some important steps which should be taken along the line. Members will contribute. We are all interested in the development. No. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, I need your protection. Somebody is trying to disturb me.
You need your permission now. You need my permission, but you said you were on your feet the other time.
Mr. Speaker, all that I'm saying is the leaders should guide this House very well.
Honorable Mazu, once again, take your seat. If you want guidance, we have provided it, and we'll still continue to provide it. After sitting yesterday, please take your seat. You're looking for guidance, please take your seat. When the presiding officers take your seat, take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable Mazu. Take your seat.
Mazu.
Mazu, take your seat.
Honorable Mazu, don't let them call you one more time.
Honorable Mazu, take your seat. Honorable Mazu, take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable Mazu, part of the guidance is anytime I ask you to take your seat, that does not mean that you will not be given the floor again. That is the meaning. You are looking for guidance, and I want to guide you that as at Monday, there was a meeting on MTEF by the leadership of the House with the executive. Again, yesterday, there was another meeting of the House, again with the executive. And so the conclusion of the debate on MTEF, there's going to be another meeting tomorrow with the executive. That is the input you are. And we will not be coming every time to report the interim, to give interim reports of whatever we are doing. Let's listen to you. We collect your opinion, give it back to the executive. But I beg you, each time the presiding officer asks you to take your seat, just take your seat. Nobody is going to deny you your own opportunity to hear your views. But the way you are putting it as if you don't talk, nothing should move, it's not a good parliamentary method. So you can take your floor again and let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, my name is Honorable Ismail Amazu Hassan, member representing Akwa Federal Constituency from Gombe State. I have listened to you, Mr. Speaker, and I will do according to how you said we should do. But all that I'm saying is the procedure is wrong and we have to do it right. But that I've raised my case here.
Make the point that the leaders said that it was in the interest of country. We sitting on this floor, across the floor, are very patriotic Nigerians. And whether we're of the ruling party or the opposition, everything that we do is in the interest of the country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, and I am very pleased that it comes from the leader, when the leader is on record to have said that a strong opposition also helps the democracy grow. And it is to that end, Mr. Speaker, that we feel Could I land, please, leader?
What?
You have pleaded. Don't let me rescind your plea. Mr. Speaker, sir, for me, in looking at this, a lot has been spoken to the procedure. And I believe that the reason that there is a procedure is because democracies are built on systems, structures, and institutions. And at every point in time, when we flout those systems, structures, and institutions, we weaken our democracy.
Honorable Nena, let me interject you. You're going to have your floor. It is not our procedure it is the time that we are compressing. It's time that we are compressing. We are not jumping anything. You will agree with me that time is being compressed because of what has been happening in the past. So we are trying to correct it. It's the time that is being compressed. So, Honorable Nena, we are procedurial, but time is being compressed.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, I yield to the superior argument coming from the chair. I yield, but unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I do not concede. Now, let me state, Mr. Speaker, sir, that in this document, and I refer to page 33, that there are risks, likelihoods, impact, and mitigation strategies. Now, these risk impacts are the things that may or may not make the budget a reality. And so for me, Mr. Speaker, when we say that we will have the conversation about the medium-term expenditure framework today, and we will debate the budget on Tuesday, I'm very concerned, considering that number 4 says failure to meet non-oil revenue projections, and it says that there shall be key legislative amendments required to operationalize some of the specific interventions targeted at improving the IGR. Collection efficiency of major revenue generating agencies will also be improved upon. Now, I can recognize that when they speak to collection efficiency, but when they talk about key legislative amendments, it is within the purview of the legislature. Therefore, our buy-in must be sought on the key legislative that will give any kind of legitimacy to the budget that has been brought to us. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know that you say, and I am inclined to agree with you, that it is a document, and therefore we have the powers to make any amendments, any inputs. But let me make the point that for us to railroad the House into saying we will discuss the MTF today, assuming that we all agree without conceding to the legislative inputs, that by Tuesday we'll be ready to debate the budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am a little concerned about that. To that end, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we need to take this document, look at this document, have a proper conversation on this document, look at the benchmark, look at the projected oil revenues, look at the mitigating factors against the projected oil revenues. Part of the problem says here is a continued conversation in the Niger Delta. What is the outcome of that? Engage with all the committee chairmen so that they can give us a realistic position based on which we can now start to have a proper conversation on the budget. Mr. Speaker, I do not believe that anybody in this House is unaware of the fact that the appropriation bill is the single most important piece of legislation that will be passed in this House. And therefore, we're all desirous of passing that piece of legislation. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, the impact on the budget and on our constituents and the generality of Nigerians, we will share in the blame if that budget is not properly approved because the budget was outside of the projected revenue or outside of the fee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, in a bid for us not to be part of the problem, but a part of the solution, Mr. Speaker, I do not have a problem with talking about the MTF or discussing the MTF, but I believe that we must be very granular, bore down to all the issues, deal with the issues properly, so that when we do present the appropriation bill before the people of Nigeria, it will be a budget that nobody will be able to argue with. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Daniel Asuko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Dan Asuko. I represent Akam Kwabiase Federal Constituency. I'm from Cross River State. Mr. Speaker, today is a call to duty as legislators, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Most importantly, I represent the people of Akan Fabiase. And the rules book of this House says that every money bill, a member shall speak for a period of time, clearly known by all of us. So thank you for giving me an opportunity. But going back to the subject matter, drawing from what the last speaker said, also keeping to the appeal of the leader of the House and also the interventions of the chair, I would like to start by saying that it is proper for us to bridge time, but let us also abridge the ways things were done before. And I think that was the thing that our former colleague, the guy that was talking up there was trying to say. So we are bridging time because the executive has said we should return to December timeline for passing budgets, but it does not change the fact of the was giving his vote of thanks. He thanked Mr. President for abiding by the law passed by this House, keeping to 12 calendar months for executing the 2016 appropriation. And it yielded a serious economic impact that took us out of recession because we clearly worked on 12 calendar months. We saw the gains. The National Assembly committees went out on budget performance and they did a good work. And it took us out of recession.
Honorable Daniel Suko, yes, what you are saying is relevant to budgetary matter, but we are, please, don't be self-opinionated. Let's discuss MTEF. The earlier point of order you raised has been ruled on. We are discussing MTEF, and that if we are able to go through the debate on MTEF and the debate on budget, it does not mean that there will not be a proviso to say that this year budget should run a 12 calendar month. Don't jump. We still have the opportunity to come as a House and say that the budget must run 12 calendar. So don't preempt what the House will do. So that's why those arguments are not relevant now. Let's discuss, let's follow up. We can come back in January and say the budget of 2017 should run 12 calendar months. We are not yet there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think Mr. Speaker was distracted by members, and so he did not hear my opening speech and my progression of my presentation. I did not make a case for that we should not speak. I was building a case. And as it is my time to speak by the provisions of the law and the privilege you've given me, I thought that I should marshal out my points progressively, and that's what I was doing. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you once again. Now, on the main document, I have looked at the documents that we're supposed to be discussing, and I have a problem, Mr. Speaker. One, with the timeline, that the duties given to us as National Assembly members and committees, we have not gone out to even review the performance indicators that we want to even discuss about. And we are here to discuss and argue on it. Well, as it concerns the document on page 23, they are saying that there are presumptions they are going to do on power. And there is a document that the Federal Executive Council passed, which was just sent to us some weeks ago, which is called the Recovery Plan on Power, which is the Power Recovery Plan. Mr. Speaker, I put it on record that that document is faulty. That document has not been tested. The indices in those documents have not been verified. And I think that is the work of this National Assembly. So for us to begin to build indices around a faulty policy document that was passed in the ESCO, I have gone through the document with my committee and my consultants, and we realize that that document does not solve the power sector recovery plan. That document only solves an aspect of it, and that is solving the financial aspect, the liquidity gap. That is not the problem. We will go back to the years of fuel subsidy, where we are solving one problem, but we are building up debts that will not come out of it. I am of the opinion, as was suggested, that we need to take time and look at these documents, debate on it, and as they have written it as a basis here, that they are building their indices around this PSRP. Mr. Speaker, by the grace of your humble self, you gave me and my committee a duty. I'm standing here to put a challenge directly to this document, that the document has not been tested. The document solves one problem and leaves myriads of other problems unsolved. And that is why, by the grace of the Speaker, I heard that the motion was passed here, was presented and passed, that there should be a public hearing on that document. And that's the best way to go. And that's the only reason the indices built from that document will be verified and approved. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Yeah, your point of order. Honorable Sampson.
Honorable Speaker, my name is Honorable Sampson Oku, member representing of the Federal Constituency of Benue State. Order 9 from 8. No member shall impute improper motive to any other member. Mr. Speaker, I raise this point of order because, as a presiding officer of this House, when we are discussing about this MTF, you called my name, that you called me to order in the open, that as if I was going to install or stop the process of this budgeting. But we believe that what we are doing a good thing for this great country. We make sure that the House rule is being followed. We make sure that the proper thing is being done, because we can see most of my previous speakers have called your attention to, even when the House leader rose the constitutional point of order. And the Fiscal Responsibility Act spell out what 12 calendar year month means in the financial year. That means that 12-month financial year that spelled out in the Fiscal Responsibility Act means that the president will cause to lay that document by September, October. And that is what we are saying. And every budget is predicated on the MTF, which we agree upon. That's what we're saying. But Mr. Speaker, you are now coming back to plead with the House. That means that you called me to order in the open, and that's what I'm talking about. You improper motive to me. So, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sampson, you are ruled out of order. Yes, we understand the feeling of the House. Don't forget the fact that it was announced yesterday that, like I said, I will repeat, I'm coming, that MTF paper is ready, and honorable colleagues should collect and discuss. So we still go on. There's still an opportunity tomorrow for members to contribute. So you still have between now and tomorrow, for those of us who have not read it, to read, to come and make their contribution. So that by the year 2018, when 2019 budget will be presented, we will have corrected the time that is being compressed. So that is what we are trying to do. So Honorable Daniel Rineju.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues. I am Honorable Daniel Rineju. Mr. Speaker, I represent Warri Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I'm from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, the issue on the floor has to do with the MTF. And before I go into it, Mr. Speaker, I want to crave your indulgence and to also let you know that I belong to the opposition and a very proud member of the opposition for that matter, and also a very progressive opposition in this House. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the plea of the leader of the House on the subject matter. And when I was listening to him, I was reflecting to the last 8 years while he was a minority leader, an opposition leader. And I was wondering that if he were to be in this position that we have found ourselves, what would my leader be doing right now on this floor? And I came to it again to say that whether we like it or not, he's the leader. Issues have been mixed up. There are mix-ups. And the responsibility goes to all members that are seated here today, including the leadership, that as at when these things came in, and as sitting parliamentarian, we were supposed to know that we shouldn't have allowed Mr. President to lay the budget as at when he laid it. But we allowed him. This is Parliament. Mr. Speaker, before I go into that again, I will make one small comment. And this comment should not be misunderstood. I'll make this comment to also instigate this Parliament to know that we owe a responsibility to the people we represent, most especially this great country, that the best democratic government or the best democracy fails when Parliament are refused to carry out their responsibilities. When they are refused, or when Parliament itself refuses to carry out its own responsibilities. And the best of the military rule, which is the worst you can ever have, will always fail when the guns refuse to boom. Mr. Speaker, this is democracy. I have listened to points raised by my sister and colleague. She has made very cogent points. It becomes very difficult for us, Mr. Speaker, to just pick up a paper just last night, and we are expected to go through it and do seasoned contributions to it that could make sense to anybody. Yes, we have seasoned parliamentarians. We can do it if we agree to do it. On that point, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead, because we are in opposition and we are a very progressive house, that this nation must move forward. We have seen the mistakes. We saw them coming. And we knew the laws are all there. If you ask me, I will say it is too late to carry those volumes of laws and start quoting them at this point, because we should have quoted them much earlier before now. So what do we do at this point? I plead with my very progressive opposition members that we should allow it go. But the good thing is that I can see the leader actually sweating it out right now. He never let us rest. My leader will take the MTF and allow it to go in the interest of this nation, in the interest of the people that we represent, and in the interest of those that actually voted for us to be in this great Parliament. And so, the MTF to me, I would say, I will only take on the issues which was raised by my sister. The issues of the production of oil and the sales of oil. Whether we like it or not, Mr. Speaker, as at this moment, the economy of this nation is predicated on oil. And as such, when figures are being reeled out about oil, we must be realistic. Most especially on the fact that the Niger Delta is still boiling. Efforts are ongoing. I remember yesterday the Minister for Petroleum was in my state, meeting with stakeholders, which means issues are ongoing. They are discussing. As of today, I don't even know what the production of this nation is. Nobody tells us what the figures are. And to make matters worse, even when the so-called ministers are invited, they refuse flagrantly, they don't even attend. When you ask them questions, it's as if you are bothering them on issues that has to do with the progress of this nation. Mr. Speaker, this shouldn't be. 2.1 in 2018, 2.8 in 2019, and then about 3.1, if I hear you very well, in 2020. Mr. Speaker, this is very unrealistic. From what I know, for a very long time, we have not had fresh rigs go into the Atlantic or into the creeks or into the swamp to explore for oil. Yes, various efforts have been made in the basins, and nothing has come out of it. I tell you, Mr. Speaker, let us not confuse Nigerians. This is unrealistic, and this is where I'll rest my case. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Reneju. You have proven with others, with earlier speakers too, that you are senior members of the House, starting from Betty, who raised the issue, to Muazu, to Inena, to Samson, everybody. We are grateful for the opportunity you have given us to go ahead and discuss the MTF. It was because I knew what was actually happening. That was why I also decided to go that direction. So we are grateful to you. We are very, very grateful. I want to remind you too that we are aware that some of these key assumptions might not be realizable. We are aware. And that, in fact, was the major point of discussion in a meeting we had yesterday when we tried to discuss the issue of whether to raise the benchmark or not. But the Minister of Budget and Planning came with one superior argument that they kept that benchmark at 45, far distant from the current price of oil, which is at 60, because they know the 2.5 million barrels of oil is not realizable. So that whatever is lost in terms of volume can be compensated for in terms of price. So these are things we know. That's why we ask members to just discuss first. It's not that we're just closing our minds. And I never allowed the APC people to talk because I want to listen to PDP first. They don't understand this thing. Some of them they think we don't want to allow them. Now that you have spoken, you have given us the free ticket. We will correct the 4 months later. So the floor is open now properly. Thank you, Reneju, Inena, Samson, Betty, Muazu. Those are the earlier speakers. Thank you very much. The APC cannot talk. Yes, Aman Pategi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues. I want to appreciate, my name is Honorable Aliyu Ahmad Patigi. I represent the people of Moro Patigi. I'm from Kwara State. I want to appreciate the opposition for doing their work. We know that this discussion should have been had before the laying of the budget by the president. And like the leader has pleaded, I want to add my voice to asking you to allow us continue with the 2018 budget processes. Yes, you are right that this document should have been approved by the Parliament before the laying of the budget, because this document was the basis upon which the budget itself was to have been prepared. We accept our lapses as a ruling party, and we plead with you in our usual tradition. This House has never looked at issues that have to do with the welfare of the citizens of this country on party lines. So I'm adding my voice to further appeal to you to let us, because if you look at this document, what does it contain? The presiding officer has said that, number one,
Aman, just secure Alagbaso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My point order is on Order 9, Row 2. Any member deviating from the provision of these rules or the Constitution may be immediately called to order by the Speaker or the Chairman. In this case, by any member rising to a point of order. A member rising to the point of order shall simply direct attention to the point he desires to bring to notice and submit to the Speaker or the Chairman to the occasion. Mr. Speaker.
every other person has spoken, especially the leadership and the speaker. I don't know why, who made...
You are in order, but please, thank you, we have begged. Party Aman, just make your contribution on MTF. Thank you.
Thank you, our elder, the oldest member. I'm guided, but you know section 42, I should go straight to the point. The point is that we all know what is contained in this document before us. And like the presiding officer has said, Mr. Speaker, you said that you are aware that most of these assumptions are mere assumptions. Eventually, committees of this House that has to do, all the money committees will sit over this document. Aids, loans, and business to look at our liabilities, appropriation, finance, all of them, they will sit, legislative budget and research, to look critically at this document and make recommendations to this House. So I want to appeal that in our usual tradition of attending to money bills, both parties, ruling party and the opposition party, we should please allow this document to go before the relevant committees that will peruse it and do justice to it. Thank you very much.
Kayode Oladele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Kayode Oladele. I represent Imekwa from Yewa North Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I'm from Ogun State. Without going into what has been happening, I just want to thank my honorable colleagues for what we have done today. Section 14 of the Constitution says that security and welfare of the people shall be the primary responsibility of government. We have just demonstrated that despite all the lapses, we know that the welfare of Nigerians is very important to all of us across board. And to that extent, I want to thank everybody. Mr. Speaker, sir, talking about the MTF, in order to know what will happen in the assumptions of the following year, I think we have to look at what has been happening so far, at least in 2017. And from what I have here, Mr. Speaker, even though the assumptions are just assumptions in the medium-term expenditure framework, I think to a very great extent, they are also very realizable. And why am I saying this, Mr. Speaker? We are talking about the oil production. Last year, the projection was 2.2 million barrels per day. That was the projection in the 2017 fiscal responsibility, the MTF. But this year, to date, as of July this year, Mr. Speaker, 1.9 million barrels per day was the production. And if 2.2 was the projection, and we are doing 1.9, on the average, I think we are doing well. And to that extent, if they are saying 2.5, which may be a little bit more higher than that, and the issue of the price of oil per barrel, Mr. Speaker, we are not doing badly. Why am I saying this also? Last year, the benchmark of the price was 44. Today, it's more than that. And if you are looking at it, one may be compelled to say, okay, why don't we just raise it to 60? But the issue of oil price is something that goes beyond us in Nigeria alone. We are a member of OPEC. It's a very dynamic thing. Therefore, we have to look at something that will be realizable. And I want to say that the executive has done well by looking at it in the area of the volatility in the oil market. That if we put it at $60 per barrel, it may not be realizable. So, despite the fact that today it is about $60 per barrel, it's been projected at 44. To me, the 2.5 million barrels per day, which is the projection today, can, even if it's not realizable, the difference in the projection per barrel can make up with it. So to me, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would say that the MTF as we have it today is not different from the others. It's not different from the previous ones, and that we should allow it to go as it were. The only area, perhaps the only area that I have issues with, Mr. Speaker, has to do with the exchange rate. And we have been saying this over and over. Last year, the exchange rate was put at 305 naira to $1. We all know that that is not realistic. And they are saying that it is 305 naira to $1. That is not realistic at all. In the black market today, Mr. Speaker, we know that the exchange rate is far beyond that. But nonetheless, again, it is something that is very dynamic. And if you put the whole thing together, I would think that the MTF as we have it today is not different from what we've been having before. And if, going by what the projection and what you have been realizing so far, if there's something to go by, then I believe that we should allow this MTF to go, we should approve it, and then of course discuss it between today, tomorrow, at the latest maybe next week, and then we go into the issue of the budget. Because whether we like it or not, the budget has been laid, people expect us to do something, and whatever thing we do here in the MTF will also be the basis for the debate on the budget. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this issue of the MTF, and to also urge my colleagues, as we have been doing since the beginning of this debate, to allow this, approve the MTF so that we can go straight into the debate on the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Pali.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'm Pali Uriase. I represent Onwa Federal Constituency. First, let me thank you for the masterful way you handled the bipartisan nature of this House. That is how it should be, and we need to commend your accommodating nature. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I have taken a look at the provisions, the critical provisions made in this MTF. And I want to say that I join others in saying that we must tread with caution on the issue of the production target. It is, with all things considered today, pretty unrealistic to expect that we can make 2.3 million barrels per day in the year 2018. But be that as it may, it is a target that everyone can work towards, and it will be a happy day for Nigeria if we are able to achieve that target of 2.3 million barrels per day. But Mr. Speaker, what this House must be urged to do in considering this MTF is that we should and must tinker with the benchmark price. Everything considered, the benchmark price that this MTF has brought is way below what is achievable in 2008. Mr. Speaker, it is not enough to let us know that in your interface with the executive yesterday, they have already said it will be a balancing factor. If we do not put it in the MTF, that balancing factor will go to excess crude account, and it will not help us to reduce the deficit in the budget. I expect that if we jack up the benchmark price, we will then be able to reduce the level of deficit and, also reduce the borrowing more more seriously. So I am urging that as this document is approved to be taken to the relevant joint committees, they should do everything to take a serious look at the benchmark price. It is not all right. We need it because we are all also from states. It is this benchmark price that determines what states get in the monthly allocation meetings. And if we are not mindful of that, we will be shortchanging the states also. And that is why it is very important that we put a lot of stress, and I know a lot of work is going on at the level of the presiding officers and principal officers in this, but it is something that we need to think about. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, no estimation is ever perfect. Everything we are reading is mere estimate, and we can only try, given the information at our disposal, to tinker with some of the projections, and that is why it is before Parliament. And I urge that we approve that this document be taken to the relevant committees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Plenary. I say once again, thank you very much, Honorable colleagues, for allowing debate on MTF. So, because of the urgency nature of the debate and the document itself, we might need to put the question now and continue other businesses tomorrow. Betty, what is known now? Because we must make sure that whatever we do, you agree with, so don't come with point of order. What is known now before I put the question? So, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. MTF is hereby referred to relevant committees of the House to, yes, debate concluded on MTF. MTF is now properly referred to relevant committee of the House. Honorable colleagues, the fifth order of the day is a motion on the need to review the condition of service of medical personnel and improve the state of health institutions in Nigeria, standing in the name of Honorable Bode Ayorinde. Honorable Ayorinde is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Dr. Bode Ayorinde. I represent Owo, Ose Federal Constituency. I am from Ondo State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is a motion on the need to review the condition of service of medical personnel and improve the state of health institutions in Nigeria. The House is called to note that Section 14(2), subsection B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended provides that the security and welfare of the people of Nigeria shall be the primary purpose of our government. Also notes that access to medical care for a larger percentage of the citizens of this country is a major determinant of the welfare level of the citizens. But a situation where the nation's hospitals operate without the required number of doctors cannot be regarded as commensurate with the provisions of the welfare for the citizens by the government. The House is aware of the press release by the chairman, Nigerian Medical Association, Lagos State Chapter, Dr. Olumuyiwa Odushote, last Thursday, which painted a pathetic picture of the state of health care delivery in the country, which has precipitated an exodus of medical doctors from Nigeria that has reached an alarming proportion in the form of, as quoted by Dr. Duchote, more than 40,000 of the 75,000 registered Nigerian doctors they are practicing abroad, while 70% of the remaining 35,000 are currently processing their papers to relocate outside Nigeria in search of greener pastures. 100 doctors, he said, have resigned from the University College Hospital, UCH Ibadan, in 2017 alone, while 800 doctors resigned from Lagos State hospitals in the last 2 years. He said, in Kebbi State, not having been able to employ a single doctor for his hospitals in the last 2 years, despite multiple advertisements for recruitment. He also said over 200 doctors and nurses have resigned from Ladoke Akintola Teaching Hospital, Ogbomoso, in the last 1 year. The House is also aware that the consistent underfunding and neglect of the nation's health care system over the years have led to its moribund state that is characterized by decrepit equipment, poor quality services, avoidable deaths as a result of lack of experience of personnel, lack of drugs, and prescription of expired drugs, etc. Cognizant that the nation has been classified as needing over 300,000 medical doctors at the moment, and also requiring another 10,605 new doctors annually to meet the demand of providing good and quality patient care to the citizenry. Concerned that the 2018 budget proposal made provision for only 3.9% for the health sector against the benchmark of 15% of the total annual budget as prescribed by the World Health Organization. The House is called to resolve to mandate the committees on health institutions and the health care services to engage stakeholders in the health sector on the precarious situation of the health care delivery in the country and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Honorable Famrewa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Israel Ajibola Famrewa, member representing Atakumosa East and West, Elisha East and West from State of Osun. I rise to second the motion as moved by my brother. I so second.
Dr. Ayorinde, in 2 minutes, lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. This motion is on the precarious situation we have found ourselves in the health sector. I listened to the press conference by Dr. Duchote, who painted all these facts. And honorable colleagues, you agree with me that one of the worrisome situations in Nigeria today is that health tourism has become a prey on the foreign exchange of this country. At the slightest headache, people will travel to India, Israel to access quality health care, while our health institutions in Nigeria has become a mere consulting clinics. The picture painted by Dr. Duchote is that the few medical doctors we have are taking their exit, leaving this country en masse, leaving the hospitals with few, and those who are still there are writing examinations that will take them out of the country. So what is the welfare of our people, particularly the poor members of Nigerian public who cannot get out to access better health care in outside the country? Majority of Nigerians still patronize the state hospitals, the federal medical centers. But when the doctors there are now leaving, are we going to leave Nigerians, majority of Nigerians, without doctors? This is the whole essence of this motion, that we should look at the reasons. What is making our doctors resigning and leaving this country en masse? as responsive and responsible house, we cannot fold our hands while our hospitals become mere consulting clinic. I therefore urge honorable colleagues to consider this motion so that the two relevant committees can engage the necessary stakeholders, the ministers, the association, and see what can be done urgently to arrest this mass resignation. Thank you, honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Yes, Honorable Betty, you are going to sit on the investigation. Okay, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Betty. I represent Abua Odual, Ahoda East Federal Constituency. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honorable colleague for raising this motion today. As Chairman Health Institutions, Mr. Speaker, I can tell this House clearly that the health sector is in crisis, and the health sector really does need emergency funding. Again, looking at the 2018 budget, even as it's presented, you will see that there's no meaningful allocation to the health sector. Tomorrow, I'm going to be coming up with a motion, and this motion is going to be talking about the outsourced services to the health sector. Now, in 2007, during the Obasanjo's regime, certain services in the health sector and other MDAs, for that matter, were outsourced. This includes cleaners, gardeners, and all of that. And since 2015, no releases have been made to this sector to pay the salaries of this category of staff. So that has increased the challenges we're having in the health sector. Because if you don't have cleaners cleaning, and mortuaries are dirty, the premises of most of our hospitals are dirty. I actually don't know how most of the CMDs and MDs of teaching hospitals and federal medical centers are coping. Because what they are doing now is the little money they raise from internally generated revenue, they are using that to pay these people to continue to manage to clean the hospitals as much as they can. Again, recently, the cost of power has gone so high that most of the hospitals cannot even maintain their generators, or not even paying NEPA bill alongside maintaining their generators and buying diesel. Unfortunately, again, the budget allocations for capital budgets in almost all the hospitals have actually been very low. And that is why some months back we have raised a motion for the teaching hospitals to be beneficiaries of the Education Trust Fund, Education Trust Fund, so that they'll be able to have enough money to enhance construction of needed structures in the teaching hospitals, because the funding, most hospitals get a capital allocation of below 80 million in any given budget because of the envelope system. Now, one of the things I'm going to be talking about tomorrow is the need for there to be a budget head for outsourced services in every health institution, so that when we are budgeting, the health institutions will have the monies to pay this category of staff, at least to keep the hospitals clean. Now, most of the teaching hospitals and federal medical centers have dilapidated structures. They lack equipments, basic equipments to work with, they don't have. Most of them don't even have consumables, gloves to work with. The situation is really bad. And it is something that needs special intervention. Now, how do you expect a doctor to work after so many years in the university? How do you expect a doctor to work in this kind of given environment? Of course, as a committee, we've been doing a lot of work with the hospitals. Of course, the need for them to also streamline the capital projects they get into. And one of the challenges we've had in the sector too is industrial disharmony. There's been a lot of challenges between the various professionals working in the health sector, and that is a continuous discussion that is going on, and with laws that are backing it. Recently, the House passed residency bill, because we know that a lot of our doctors are going out, but we also have a backlog of young Nigerians who are qualified as medical doctors and cannot get opportunity for residency training. And in the same vein, we also have a lot of doctors who are in residency training but have exceeded the number of years required. But unfortunately, the residency training had no legal backing. And luckily, the House of Representatives have been gracious enough to pass the bill. And we've got the clean copies, we sent it to the Senate, and we are hoping that with that, we should be able to, while we may not be able to stop the migration of our doctors out of the country, we'll be able to pull the younger doctors coming to get into residency and try to fill the gap as much as possible. Having said that, like my colleague has raised the points here, it's an investigative hearing. The House, the committee will do justice to it. We'll still call the stakeholders and continue to interface. But we'd like to ask that the government should really think seriously about a special intervention to renovate most of our hospitals, to re-equip most of our hospitals. In fact, we went on oversight the other day at the University of Lagos Teaching Hospital. And there's a fantastic program they run there where they are training engineers to repair broken down medical equipment like GE broke. And it's something that we actually need to spread across the region. Maybe every teaching hospital within the region should have that, so that we can train enough manpower to repair outdated and dilapidated medical equipment, to make sure that equipments we import are also functional, because in most cases, you go to the hospitals, you see dilapidated non-functional equipment. So that was a very good program that is being run by the University of Lagos Teaching Hospital. So, honorable colleagues, I'd like to appeal to all of us to support this motion, and we promise to do justice to it when it gets to our committee. I'll report back to the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Nena.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much for yielding the floor to me to speak to this motion. And I've listened to the contributions of the mover of the motion, as well as the contributions of Honorable Betty Apiafi. But I think that the issue is not necessarily the absence of the manpower, but the fact that the manpower is seeking jobs outside of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, the statistics are very dire. It says that Nigeria has 80,000 registered doctors. More than 50,000 of those doctors currently practice abroad. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had a GP for over 14 years, and he left his hospital and started selling health insurance. And I asked him why, and he was a fantastic doctor. And I asked him why, and he said to me that being a doctor in Nigeria is trading poverty. That as a practicing doctor in Nigeria, he will never get out of the poverty bracket. Mr. Speaker, sir, and that is the fact. I have absolutely no doubts that we do not have trained doctors, but they are well sought after outside Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, let me give you a few of the stats as well. They say that 92% of doctors in Nigeria are considering finding a job abroad. It furthermore says that 70% of Nigerian doctors are making plans to leave for foreign lands and are taking exams to that effect. Mr. Speaker, the stats furthermore say that 5 years ago, more than 1,000 doctors wrote the primaries exams for West African colleges, College of Physicians, to gain admission into Nigerian teaching hospitals for residency training. But this year, 2017, only 236 doctors applied for and wrote the same exams, while 660 doctors wrote plan to practice in the UK in preference over the residency exams in Nigeria. It says, as at October 2017, over 1,000 doctors have already registered for the next PLAB exams that will hold in Lagos, March in 2018. Mr. Speaker, these statistics are very dire. We have absolutely no doubt. I mean, I don't understand, if we have the manpower, how come Kebbi is without a doctor? You know, so I think that it is important that this engagement actually happens. I've read in the papers that, okay, of course, there's arguments for and against as to why doctors cannot have private practice. I mean, there's so many arguments for and against. But you see, Mr. Speaker, I think that this engagement is going to create a platform for us as a government to actually make sure that the doctors feel comfortable to practice in Nigeria, everywhere in the world. They had surgeons, for instance, who carried out the gynecologist in America who carried out the separation of that is a Nigerian. Heart surgeons in the UK, the best heart surgeons in the UK are Nigerians. Go to Dubai, half the doctors are Nigerians. If you go to hospitals in Atlanta, half of the doctors in Atlanta are Nigerians. South Africa, ditto for South Africa. And so most Nigerians leave this country and seek medical help outside of the country. And yet we go to meet Nigerians and pay exorbitant rates. So I think that the important thing is to find a way for us to mitigate against this brain drain, because that's exactly what's happening. All our doctors, because we're doing something right by turning out good doctors, are finding better paid jobs outside of this country. So I believe that what the mover of this motion is trying to do is create a platform for us to have a conversation where Nigerians and these doctors meet each other halfway in such a way that we improve on our healthcare delivery. Because, Mr. Speaker, the quality of our healthcare delivery is at the heart of the kind of personnel that we have in Nigeria. I'll give you a case in point. Mr. Speaker, we have most of the equipment, MRIs, most of the people you see, the technicians and so on and so forth, can't even interpret an MRI in Nigeria because all the people who can do it are abroad. So I agree with the mover of this motion that we should not just gloss over it. I think that this issue is existential to us as a people. It's existential to our healthcare delivery. And so it should be taken as a very, very serious issue. I therefore thank my colleague for raising this issue, and I'm hoping that this House will give it speedy passage, at least so that we can do something about our healthcare delivery.
Dr. Uja. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Dr. Chukwuemeka Uja. I represent the good people of Nkano East, Nkano West Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Enugu State. I'm not a medical doctor, I have a PhD, but I have a twin who is a doctor, so I'm close to the issues here. I'm on all fours with the mover of this motion and all the contributors so far. I even want to go a step further to say it would be a bold move for this parliament to declare a state of emergency in that sector. Because as the last speaker, my colleague, said, you go abroad and it's still the same Nigerian trained doctors that you're meeting. So it's not a case of even imparting the right knowledge. It's not even a case of finding the manpower. It's a case of retaining them, keeping them within the system. Let us know how to offer them the right rates that are comparable and competitive enough, because you see people who are operating with candlelight. The chairman medical health services said something. Hospitals are struggling to pay electricity bills. Emergency situations occur and people are dying needlessly in this country because of these situations. So we should call a state of emergency in this sector and address it head on once and for all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Okay, then.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak on this very, very important issue. I really appreciate you. My colleagues, this motion is a very pathetic motion. It shows the state of our healthcare. And for a country like Nigeria that has so many doctors, yet we are losing them every day to hospitals abroad. Those who are not losing to hospital abroad, they don't even have a place to practice here. As a person from my constituency, I have been inundated with so many people, so many doctors, young doctors who just finished, they want to go for housemanship. There's no place to go for housemanship. Some of them, they will stay at home until their certificate will almost expire. They cannot go for housemanship. And that is why this motion is very important. That's why I say I must speak on it. And I think that the way out is really to get the federal government to do a special intervention on the healthcare so that doctors can take people who have reached university for them to go for their training, housemanship training. Because if doctors are produced and they cannot go for housemanship training, it's like having lawyers who cannot go to law school and then they cannot practice. That is the saddest part of it. And then, of course, let's not forget that in quantum, Nigeria spent billions of naira to go to India, to go to Dubai, to go to Egypt, to go to South Africa, another part of the world for treatment. Now, if some of this money were available locally, we can use that to improve our facilities. Then people can now pay quality money here, and then doctors can earn good money and can be retained here. Let us also forget that a host of our doctors who have gone abroad in thousands, most of them have acquired so much experience here that if the government improves the hospital condition here and pay, some of them will come back. In fact, that should be our aim, how to lure them back so that they can provide us with the health care that we require in this country. I want to thank the mover, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues. I think this is a motion that we must all support because it's very important. All of us, anybody can fall sick, and we should not wait until it happens before we give support to this important motion so that our healthcare delivery can be superb. Mr. Speaker, I'm Honorable Ogadego, representing Board of Federal Constituency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable colleagues, the sixth order of the day is resumption of consideration of report of the Committee on Telecommunications on a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Duties Act, Chapter S8, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to ensure compliance with current realities and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that on Tuesday, 24th October 2017, the House in the Committee of the Whole deferred consideration and mandated the Committee on Justice to examine the provisions of the bill in view of the legal issues raised and advise the House within a reasonable time. And now invite Honorable Razak Atua to brief the House in 2 minutes on the recommendation.
Mr. Speaker, I am Razak Atua, representing Asa Ilorin West Federal Constituency, Kwara State. Mr. Speaker, I have caused a copy of what I'm about to deliver to be given to you as the chair. Mr. Speaker, refer to the above-mentioned bill to the Committee on Justice to provide advice to the House. The question for determination, Mr. Speaker, is whether the House may continue with deliberation of the bill at the report stage in view of the fact that there is a suit in court wherein NIPO's legal ability in relation to stamp duties is being challenged. The bill has gone through the first reading, full debate at the second reading, a public hearing, and the report is now to be considered. Essentially, the bill seeks to amend the stamp duties in order to ensure that it reflects modern realities such as taking account of e-transactions and current inflation rate. The legal opinion. Order 9, Rule 1, Paragraph 5 of the Standing Order of the House states, reference shall not be made to any matter on which a judicial decision is pending in such a way as might, in the Speaker's opinion, prejudice the interests of the parties thereto. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that the rule which is referred to is to be found under the rules of debate. The sub judice rule, Mr. Speaker, is not intended to be used as a backdoor to achieving some sort of injunction against Parliament. It is the received norm in constitutional law that Parliament cannot be stopped in any way from carrying out its constitutional duty of making law. This holds true whether or not there is any proceedings in court which the bill under consideration may affect. Parliament must not abdicate its fundamental duty of making laws on the basis that there is an issue live in court. In the United Kingdom House of Commons, the world's oldest democracy, which applies a similar but more elaborate sub judice rule, makes the rule subject to 3 exceptions. Firstly, the rule is subject to discretion of the chair, that is the Speaker. Secondly, the House remains free to legislate on any matter. When it appears that the law needs changing, the sub judice rule does not prevent us, that is the House of Commons, from making changes, even as cases go through the courts. Thirdly, the rule does not apply to cases in which a ministerial decision is in question in court. The issue has been decided in the India equivalent of this House, the Lok Sabha, the world's largest democracy, as far back as 1968. In the decisions from the chair, that is from the Speaker's chair, the Speaker ruled inter alia that under the Constitution, Parliament is supreme and sovereign in the exercise of its legislative powers and cannot be paralyzed by reason only of the fact that a writ of petition against the constitutionality of the existing legislation is pending in a court of law. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in the rare cases where it is expedient to do so, it is proper for Parliament to pass a bill into law which has direct bearing on an issue which is before the court of law in order to settle the law on the matter. In such an event, the case before the court becomes infructuous. In conclusion, Parliament has absolute right to discuss any matter without interference. However, this House has by its rules sought to guard against abuse of this power. The sub judice rule, as it applies to motions and other debates, is subject to the discretion of the Speaker. The sub judice rule does not apply to legislation. The matter at hand, being a bill, is legislated accordingly. The report on the bill may be considered by the House regardless of the matter.
Not addressed. There are two layers or hurdles here. One, the main issue is this prejudicial? What he has addressed is that the rule does not mean that we cannot go on with anything. But the question, the substantive question is that, in this particular case, is it prejudicial? That has not been answered, number one. Number two, I've looked at the report, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Speaker, at the time you referred the report to the committee, and as stated here, Mr. Speaker referred the above-mentioned bill to the Committee on Justice to provide advice to the House. It was not referred to Honorable Razak Atunwa in his personal capacity or as chairman of the committee. It was referred to the whole committee. But the report I'm seeing here, and that's why I said for the purpose of authentication, I think he should do the needful whilst we are properly guided. I agree with this report. And have, because it was signed by him and as a singular person, as opposed to other members, at least the majority of members of the committee. We run the risk, therefore, without that authentication, Mr. Speaker, we run the risk, therefore, of members of that committee, and I don't know if there is any one of them here, of that committee saying that they were not consulted or that their opinions may differ one way or the other. If we accept this report the way it is, it means we are accepting the report of Honorable Razak Atunwa in his single individual capacity, even though I align myself on all fours with the contents of the report.
Thank you, Leader. Any seconder of that report? Any seconder? Yes, Mukala Kazim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Kazim. I represent Abeokuta and Obafemi Owode and Odeda. I rise to second the report as heavily moved by my colleagues.
Yes, those in favor of the motion that the report of that committee be adopted, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, leader of the House has properly guided us, and the explanation that some members are on the floor and probably did not attend the meeting is not for discussion at this moment. Thank you very much. It's constitution, Mr. Speaker. So I now invite Honorable Akade Said Fitabi to move that the report be considered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Thank you, Honorable Leader of the House, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Sahid Akiane Fijabi. I'm from Ibadan, Oyo State. I move that the House do consider the report of the Committee on Telecommunication on the bill for an act to amend the Stamp Duties Act, Cap S8, Law of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to ensure compliances with current reality for related matters and approve the recommendation therein. I so move. Thank you.
Any seconder? Yes, Dr. Uja.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am Honorable Dr. Chukwuemeka Uja. I'm representing the good people of Nkano East to Kano West Federal Constituency. I'm from Enugu State. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by the Chairman House Committee on Telecommunications that we do consider the report in my capacity as deputy. Mr. Speaker, you understand what it is to be deputy as a spare tire, sir. Thank you.
I don't understand the spare tire aspect of it. What I understand is the motion. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that this House resolve to Committee of the Whole for consideration of the report. The report.
Please take your seat. Your motion has been proper. Okay. You should be reminded that a leader should guide us properly.
Yes, I rise to move for the consideration of the report to Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the report as the report. I'm not sure which one. Are we considering a two-hours report or of Honorable Fijabi, Chairman, Committee, Telecommunications? Thank you.
Empty.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I hereby second the motion as ably moved by the House Leader. My name is Mohamed Tair Momono. I represent Martin Momono, the Federal Constituency of the State.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. House hereby resolved to the Committee of the Whole to consider a report. The report to be considered is the report of the Committee on Telecommunication on a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Duties Act, Chapter S8, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to ensure compliance with current realities and for related matters, House Bill 889. And I invite, briefly in 1 minute, the Chairman House Committee on Telecommunication to speak to the report. Let it be brief and go straight to the point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. My name is Sahid Akiane Fijabi. I'm from Ibadan, Oyo State. I'll be brief, as you said. The amendment of stamp duty is just to, as we've said in the heading, is to conform with the current reality. What we are trying to do now is everything in life is about EEE, so we are making stamp to be EE stamp also. And secondly, to raise the threshold from 1,000 to like 3,500. And once again, that's basically what we are trying to do. This is the third time we are bringing this, and I implore my colleagues to please, and Honorable Femi Bagabe, the leader of the House. No, I'm not. I just want to tell him that I'm pleading with him to again support this bill. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman.
Honorable Fijabi, you are causing problem. Is your leader, if he starts quoting point of order now, then... Rotimi Agusoye, this is not a town hall meeting. So let's begin to consider the amended part of the bill. Clause 2, Clause 5,
Are we there? We haven't carried it.
he has deleted everything. Clause 24. Clause 25. Clause 26. Clause 28 is retained, carried. Clause 29, citation. Long title of the bill. Leader, sir.
Honorable Chairman, honorable colleagues, I don't know what's funny, right? Otherwise, having carried the report, I advise to move that we revert to plenary. I so move.
Empty.
I represent Martin Mungunonganze Federal Constituency, Borno State. I hereby second the motion that the House do revert back to plenary to report progress.
The House hereby reverts back to plenary to report progress. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Honorable colleagues, the House in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Telecommunications on a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Duties Act, Chapter S8, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to ensure compliance with current realities and for related matters, and approved clauses 1 to 29 and long title of the bill. Leader.
I rise to move for the adoption of the report as considered in the Committee of the Whole. I so move.
Empty.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I hereby second that the House do adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that this House stand adjourned till tomorrow 11 a.m. I so move.
Empty.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I remain Mohammed Tahir Munguno. I represent Martin Munguno, Ganze Federal Constituency of Borno State. I hereby second the motion as ably moved by the House Leader for adjournment against tomorrow.
The House stands adjourned till Thursday, 23rd of November 2017, 11 a.m.